For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Steve Stohler, and we have this practice, Fundamental Health Solutions. And so I just want to thank you for being here. So my pleasure to introduce you to Francie Golden. She's a professional plant-based chef, right? She is a...
It's on the card.
Yes. She's a thriver. She's a cancer survivor.
Oh.
And she has spent time studying and is a certified plant-based chef from the T. Colin Campbell Institute, and as well as several other things. I won't talk anymore. I will let her share what she's brought tonight.
I am Francie, and I actually work with Alan Weiss. My job is to go in, and I went today, 3 times a month and teach the doctors and the nurses how to prepare whole food plant-based dishes. So just to give you a little heads up today, what we did is we talked about batch cooking for dinner. And we are looking at eating less and adding more plants. And but we want, you've got to understand the biology is we want to fuel our body with healthy carbohydrates and fats and proteins that are healthy. So you have to have a balance. T. Colin Campbell, we were just talking about him, calls it a veritable symphony of nutrients. And doesn't it make it simple? We're not talking about a diet, we're talking about fueling our body. And you certainly wouldn't put rocks and sand into your Ferrari, would you? And so yet our beautiful temples should be treated the same way. And just think, everything, and I learned this the hard way, and I'll tell you this in a moment, your cellular reproduction, every part and function of your body needs to be fueled with high quality foods. So it's very important. And in terms of hair, nails, think of major organs, all of this. Food is truly medicine. It's very important, but I've given you a card because Francie hit the wall 10 years ago and I had a diagnosis, a very serious one, of breast cancer. And the funny story I tell, with my daughter sitting back there, my kids were in middle school and my husband was so upset, and the kids were so upset, and they're crying, because it looked pretty grim. And we all sit down in the living room, and I'm sitting there, and they're crying. My husband was the biggest baby, and he looks and he didn't know what to say. He said, "You've been such a wonderful wife and mother, and such a godly person, and helped us, and done so much. I know we can go on without you." Well, from that point, I thought, and he really to this day does not get it, but it makes a great story, doesn't it? Okay, with that, let's play a game. Let's see how much you know about plants and health. Okay, so the first thing, and my business, by the way, is PlantBased Radiance. If you go there and it's on the card, you can download recipes, you can print them out. The focus tonight is to tell you, how did someone that was nearly dead, and it wasn't just the cancer, I'm going to tell you about this in a moment, how did I get from there to here in 10 years? And it is progress, not perfection, but the before and after is pretty shocking. And I'll let you, we'll go detail by detail on that. But I'm going to ask you some questions that pertain to food. Just, if you have the answer, raise your hand. How do you make a bechamel white sauce without cream in a plant-based way? What would be your main ingredient? Denise?
Coconut milk.
Coconut milk would be great. And then what would be, I'm thinking of something that makes it super creamy, and you would never think of this.
Cashew. Oh, yeah.
Cashew. Excellent, 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 excellent. Let me give you a cup here. Okay, my second.
Oh, now the competition is on. Now it's on. I can't catch.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
And that is me, I would never be able to do it. Okay, so the next thing is so random, but I want you to go to this website, Nutrition Facts PlantBased.org. Okay? I look up and a lot of you are like, yeah, I go there. Michael Grieger is a doctor, is outrageous. You get a lot of answers. But I was making a recipe and it said you needed goji berries. Okay, I looked everywhere for goji berries. They're very nutrient dense, and so what happened is I go to nutritionfacts.org and I find out from Dr. Grieger that there's something that is more potent, nutritionally speaking, than goji berries. Anybody want to guess?
Acai?
Close, but there's one even higher, and it's something everyone would know.
Blueberries. Mulberries.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Keep thinking of something that's very popular. They make drinks out of it. Pomegranate. Who said pomegranate? Oh! And who said that? Could you pass that back? All right, here it goes again. Are you ready? What South American grain is a complete protein with 9 amino acids? What?
Quinoa.
Are you kidding me, Judy? How did you know that?
Oh, you're so good.
Are you ready? Okay. Next one. What is the only vitamin that you must take if you're going to be vegan? A nutrient supplement that's indispensable, or you will have neurological problems. And
B12.
Yes. K is one of them too, but I was thinking of something that causes neurological. B12.
You got it. That's okay.
I'm going to bring this over to you if you just pass. I can PlantBased Radiance cup. And okay, in a 2017 obesity study, what country is ranked second? And it's a large population, so this is a little bit unfair. The United States is number 1. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Number 1 in the
What?
world. Okay. What country is number 2?
In what?
In what? In obesity. Numbers of population. Now, try to
Mexico.
China.
Oh,
We got a pen. Awesome. All right. Now, I am going to, I don't think I can go backwards. Yes, okay. Silent as everybody just transitioned. I have dedicated this to because what I'm going to do is, just picture I am a chef and a health coach, and I spend a lot of time making recipes. You can find them, as I said, download them from my website, but and I'll talk to you about it. But Steve had said the journey was very interesting, so I am going to kind of focus on how I recovered, because sometimes I'm shocked myself. Like, I should have died, and now I have better health than I ever did. I'm still as crazy as ever and eccentric, but the thing is, what happened? It took me 10 years to figure this out. By the way, this is a lot like the Blue Zones, but this is my personal trek, and I just came up with that like about 9 months. I finally put it together, and I said, okay, well, what happened to me? And these are the points, and it wasn't just the food. And you can imagine, we are sacred, holistic, marvelously created temples of perfection and purpose. And it's amazing how the body functions. And I love when someone says shalom, because it means total peace and well-being. And that is what we need. Body, soul, spirit. So if you think it's just about food, I've met plenty of people who are so sick and they're eating all this right food, but they're stressed out to the max. They can't control their mind. And so I want you to take these and look at these, and as I'm talking, think about yourself. This night is about you. Dedicated to every unique and sacred human being who has passed away, this almost makes me cry, from a preventable chronic disease, and to those who have discovered the power of plants and lifestyle choices to prevent and reverse them. And I am the second person, and perhaps you are. There's great hope, there's great excitement. This was me. What happened is there was a lot of fear over my diagnosis. And before I gathered information, I decided to go with the target therapies, which would be chemotherapy, and also I had radiation. So this is a chemotherapy room for those of you that have never seen one. It's not a fun place. But my son got into Georgetown with his essay on armchairs that will scare you to death.
Right.
And he actually, isn't that funny? So he got accepted into school for that essay. But anyway, I want you to imagine with me really what happened. I'm sitting in here and it's frightening experience. You have a drip, but you can walk around. And being an inquisitive person, there were 8 other individuals in the room with me. And I thought to myself, I'm going to meet them and see who they are and what they're going to do about their health condition. We're all in the same boat. It wasn't much fun because all you got was a number, your social security number. You really didn't even have a name. And I'm sure they had to do that to keep the medicine straight. But anyway, I walked around and I remember the faces of these people and they became friends. And I can see them sitting there. One's name was Melissa, and she was a beautiful French girl in her 40s. And she had really kind of ignored a lump that had grown, and then she got to the point where she had a pretty severe diagnosis for the cancer, so she was there. Then there was Jim. Jim was a tennis player and just a very ebullient, fun person to be with, and I'd sit there and talk to him, very tall guy. And I can remember Rachel, and I can go on and on. There were 8 individuals, and we became friends because you're there every day together, or at least once a month. So what happened is I'd say, okay, what are you going to do? You have this diagnosis, what are you going to do? And I get responses like, nothing, because my doctor said that, lifestyle really has nothing to do with cancer. Now, I want to preface this, that I don't feel there are any doctors that wouldn't like to know the truth, but very few nutrition courses are taught in medical school, and that's changing. But a lot of them really don't know. So, for example, the answer the doctor gave me is, cancer just drops out of the sky, hits you on the head. Don't worry about changing, but somehow that didn't seem right. So what happened, and I have to tell you that I'm telling you my story. So this isn't lumping everybody together. We have Maureen here, who is an advocate for holistic health, and she works with the David Lawrence Center and is a PA. I mean, there's so many people. We have Dr. Steve, who's on the cutting edge. So please, this is just my story, and I'm trying to tell you. So a lot of people didn't change. They were going to keep up with their highballs and going ahead and doing whatever they did, because they said, well, all you need to do is take a pill or do another treatment. So that seemed to be the general thought process. And this works into my story a little later. That Melissa, the French girl, had gone over to the Hippocratic Health Institute over in Miami, and she came back with a DVD, and she said, you gotta watch this. And so I'm sitting, I was so sick from the treatment, I'm really laying, watching this DVD. And I am learning shocking bits of information that your lifestyle choices do affect not only your prevention of chronic diseases, but your reversal of them. And I started to get a little spark of encouragement that things could be different. Unfortunately, it's Melissa didn't follow it. She actually, it's very ironic, people's journey. And I must tell you, it's very much a one-on-one individual choice. that you have to make. You have to go it alone a little bit to a certain extent because it's your life and you have to make a decision with what you're going to do. And it was very ironic that Melissa really saved my life by starting me in a new direction, but she didn't take the advice and she went downhill quite fast, and she also took a part of the journey that we'll talk about later in attitude. She became very bitter. And I must tell you, none of the 8 people are alive today with me. Most of them went ahead with experimental treatments. The saddest thing, and Kira knows, because Kira knows about Jim, right honey? This could make me cry. His sweetest man, and what happened, he kept going with treatments, and they would try an experimental one. He lost his speech. He got Lou Gehrig's disease, and at the end, his wife was wheeling him to our house, and sweet Kira was playing a game with him, and cheering him up, but he didn't recover, and he passed away. So I hate to start us off on that, but what did I do? I took Melissa's advice, and I looked in the mirror, okay? And I said to myself, you know what? I really need to see who I am, who I've been, and where I'm going. So I'm going to quickly tell you what I saw in the mirror, and it was not a pretty picture. Cancer actually was the greater manifestation, the most obvious of my myriad problems, okay? And I will just run down them very quickly because I was able to fortunately take that look in the mirror and see that, first of all, I never ate vegetables. I didn't like vegetables. They rotted in the refrigerator, so I didn't eat them. I had lived in France, and I had I loved to cook, and I ate all fatty foods. I saw no consequences of it. And then I developed candida, and I was told that it was a very bad level of yeast buildup, and I ignored it, really. I thought, what does that mean? Now I know it has everything to do with gut health. So I ignored that. Then I had taken antibiotics for over 20 years. Believe me, that depletes your immune system. Then I cannot get pregnant, so I start on hormone treatments for many years, injecting hormones. Okay, so I had that. Then high levels of stress, unresolved conflict, prolonged sorrow, and a perpetual conundrum of stress and unhappiness that a lot of it was my own perception, and we'll talk about that. But just put that in all together, 50 pounds overweight, all right, on a relatively small frame, high cholesterol, skin disorders, pre-cancers. I was a mess, but I didn't really know it. And so when I looked in the mirror, I realized I do play a part in my health. I want you to look at here. This is what hit me with that Hippocratic DVD. I was going to either look at the allopathic medical paradigm, treating symptoms with drugs and surgery, which our country is known for, or I was going to look at my being as a whole person, and looking for the underlying causes. And I just told you I pretty well figured that out, that I had contributed substantially to what was going on. And as I said, the cancer was the greater manifestation of it. But I needed to get a grip. So I already had my belief system intact, and because I was a strong Christian woman, and I responded, and this came naturally to me, not why me, Lord, but what are we going to do about this, Lord? What now, Lord? So that helped me a lot. I put this slide up front because part of what you need to do in total health is to be authentic and transparent. And if I can't put out that my faith is what really started me off in a direction, that would be inauthentic. So that's what I did. And remember, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. All right, now I get cooking. I decide, I always loved studying, so I thought to myself, I'm going to find out what makes my body tick. And I was not a science major. I'm art and music, so I really was not science oriented, but I went to FSW, the old Edison. I signed up for 2 biology courses because I had to start in at high school level and then work my way up to the college. It was like the fireworks went off in my brain when I realized biology and how the body functions, and that we truly can feed our body, that we can, that it has everything to do with high quality living and cellular reproduction. And when I learned that the immune system, which really isn't a system at all, but it with the white blood cells that had names like killer cells and yeah, I mean, just think of it. They were like white knights on a horseback within your system, fighting off these aberrant cells and these viruses. I mean, you've got a whole slew of army men in there working to keep you healthy. And you know when you cut your finger, what happens? The white blood cells go in and it heals. But think on the inside, the same thing. It's actually a fact that most of us have cancer cells. All of us really have them in our lifetime. But you don't know about it because if you've got a healthy immune system, meaning that you're not nutrient deficient or under severe stress, you know, the body's fighting and fighting. But if you're not allowing it to do its job by maybe, you know, very using foods that are affecting your system and not, you know, and really ruining the ability for these white cells to function, we're going against the body's natural ability to heal. So you don't really have to worry about the cancer cells because they're going to be taken care of by your very own body. And you know, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, segueing a little to heart from cancer, and he's worth a read. His father started the Cleveland Clinic, but he was a cardiovascular surgeon, and he found that his patients recovered on a plant-based diet, and he said that heart disease is a veritable toothless paper tiger if you take care of yourself and feed it the right way. So I just recertified in CPR, and it was confirming the same thing, that heart attacks and cardiac arrest are all related to the plaque buildup and the lifestyle choices that we're making. All right, so what did I do next? I went from those classes, those biology classes, and I said, I'm going to educate myself. So this is year 2. First of all, I was so depleted, I looked 100 years old, and I have pictures to prove it. I'm not going to pour you into them. I think I almost died from the treatments, more so than the cancer, you know. So I looked horrible. Plus, I had no hair, so that's not. I'll never forget. That's an awful thing to go through. Yeah. So when your hair starts falling in, I go to my hairdresser, and she's a young girl. And I said, "Could you shave my head?" I can't do that. You know, so my husband had to shave my head. And so it's almost barbaric in so many ways. But anyway, sometimes it's necessary, but I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but I'm just trying to give you like a little feel of where I was at. It took me about 1 year to recover. But I continued to educate myself, and here you see T. Colin Campbell wrote the China Study. Steve was showing us that I began to build a support system. And you can even do, you know, there's a great movement going on, so you can educate yourself even online, and there's so many. I went to a conference, the International Nutrition Conference in Anaheim, California, and it had 800 doctors, nurses, healthcare practitioners, and these are people all over the country that are pushing to prescribe food as medicine and lifestyle choices. So we're not the only ones. It's all over the country. And guess what I found at that conference? That of all areas to be in, the healthiest is Fort Myers, Lee Memorial, and Naples Hospital. I mean, I'm talking the country, including California, and people get up and talked about it. And I know at Lee Memorial, a lot of the doctors are wearing pins that say food is medicine. And of course, we talked about Alan Weiss bringing in all these people trying to change things up. But it was remarkable that the Blue Zones is only on the East Coast, isn't it? And I don't think does it carry all across the country, or is it, or are we the only ones that are doing it on the East Coast?
No,
It's on the East Coast.
Florida.
Yeah.
There's the beach cities, which is like Redondo Beach.
Yes.
There's the whole state of Iowa, or 10 cities in Iowa, and then there's a couple cities in Minnesota, and then now Texas, and I believe there's one other one that's just Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, and I think that's all that I can remember right now.
That's still not very much compared to, But anyway, I'm gonna keep going here. So I have fundamental health solutions, because that can be they use the term in Blue Zones, tribe. And you start building a connection. You can't go it alone. If you're going through a health problem right now, you need people who can educate you and be your cheerleader on it. This was that conference. If anyone's ever interested, you can get points as a nurse or a healthcare practitioner, and people from all over the world are there, specialists, doctors, speaking, and it's very encouraging. Here's something I want you to think about. Ruby has cooking classes online. You can get a certificate in whole food plant-based nutrition with top chefs, and you don't have to step into a school. It's actually very grueling, and but in a nice way. It's challenging is a better way to put it. And you cook at home, but you have to send the photos in, and then a chef works with you. And it's all about plating as well as taste. But I highly recommend it. Look it up. I think you could take a 3-month course for $99, or a 6-month one, and I think that's probably $1,500.
What is the name of it?
And it's I'm so sorry. It's ROUXBE, like a roux. You're making a roux and cooking. It's ROUXBE. Now, the great thing, you can sign up for $4.99 a month, $4.99. You have access to all their recipes, and they're delicious. And remember, one big key for your transition are delicious recipes. Because if it's not delicious, you ain't gonna eat it. And neither is your spouse or your friend or your children. And when I was at that conference, there was a doctor from India, and she was very kind of outspoken in a good way though. And the hotel was trying very hard to put together meals, but they're not specialists in whole food plant-based. And they had a lot of lettuce, and you don't need just lettuce. There's like delicious things. Today we made a penne carbonara with smoked tempeh.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things you can do that you can make delicious recipes. So this lady's walking around and she's eating lettuce for breakfast, and all of a sudden she goes, "I can't stand it. I came from India to get good recipes, and all I'm eating is lettuce." So remember, that's one of the reasons I became a chef, is because recipes do make the difference, but you can do it online with Ruby, and it won't cost you that much. You will get a certificate. 4. Okay? So now let's go. Food as medicine. That's a given. That Hippocrates said this, that food is medicine and medicine your food. And we've talked about it, how it fuels your body, every part, every organ, everything, even your hair. I have found amazing changes, and I'll just speak about this over the 10 years. One of them is dental health, like no bleeding gums, whiter teeth, the eyes are whiter. My eye color became more iridescent, and I've had people remark on that, and I know it has to do with healthy foods. So skin changes, there is a glow. There's even a website if anyone likes to have look elsewhere besides my website. Remember this website, Oh She Glows. All right, and it's a great website for recipes, and Oh She Glows because you get kind of a glow when you eat well, because what's inside comes out on the outside. All right, now here's what I did next. All right, it's one thing to have recipes, but I love what Dean Ornish says, Dr. Dean Ornish, if it's not enjoyable, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
If you're going to make changes in your life, you can't, that's why no fad diets ever work, because you can't just, you can't go for something and hit yourself over the head. It's got to be small steps of change, and it's got to be enjoyable and fun. So I don't want you to think about diet. I want you to think about incorporating exciting lifestyle changes. Here are some suggestions. First of all, here's your local farmer, Nick Batty, all right? He's from Inyani Farms, Inyani, I-N-Y-O-N-I. I love Nick, and I
love Nick.
Isn't he nice, Denise? So the thing is, this guy has a farm in East Naples. You may not even know it, but he went to the University of Florida, and wouldn't it be fun to go to this market? This is a picture from the Naples market, and talk and buy your veggies from Nick. You can start thinking that way. I want you to think of celebrating whole food, plant-based eating, making it enjoyable. How much fun is that to know the farmer, or to go over to Cornerstone, or Jan, like work with Jan and her husband. What's your husband's name?
David.
David. Work with them, get to know them. And then when you're eating, you know the people that have picked your food. You know it didn't ride on a truck or an airplane from Argentina, right? So this is if you have an apple and it's been sitting there for 4 weeks, it's probably a dead apple. It probably so just keep that in mind. So here, this is a Naples market. You get to know it. I'm going to tell you other fun things I did. I brought my son to Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is also one of the blue zones area, the Nicoya Peninsula. At the time, I didn't know it. But I noticed one of the things they do is beans and rice. So that's, and then I find out that that's a perfect protein when you put it together, and they have it for breakfast and it gets them going. So my son went with me. At first he was so shy, he was only 12 years old, but leave it to the abuelita, the grandma, she started cooking for him. Fresh juice, all this amazing food, sometimes served on a palm frond. It was outrageous. Then we would eat outside. Experience, start being creative. Here's another thing, France, this is just a little thing I did. This was from a picture when I lived in France, and this was the French mother, and she would prepare these beautiful tables, and the food would be fresh from the market. But I can tell you that the experience of eating was just heavenly, and we'd sit there for hours. So what I did when my kids were young is I bought an old antique French table, and a French table and what they call a vaisselier, which is like a hutch cupboard. And I tried to replicate the feeling that I had when I lived in France. And I would make the kids sit down, and my husband was the hardest one. You'd have to talk to each other, and you could only, Kira knows this, because you could only ask questions that required a full answer, no, no, or yes. So Kira's little, she'd say, Daddy, what was the funniest thing that happened today to you at work? And Dad would go, nothing. And it's really funny. Remember that, Kira? But anyway, all right, the next thing, meaningful physical activity. I never exercised at all. I mean, so then I decided, what am I going to like? And this is what I ask you to do. Find something, the blue zone says just move. Find something meaningful to you. You don't have to go into a gym and lift weights. You can jog or you can walk right here with friends. Yoga is very empowering. I selected that because as a breast cancer survivor, you know, it's very good in just opening yourself up and stretching. And I honestly felt like walking around like this, just to be real, because you feel so awful. And so the yoga taught me to be flexible and to open up and to breathe deeply, which is what we're going to do with meditation coming up. And also take advantage of our beautiful areas. This is from, what's that, Greenway? Yeah. So there's so many places in Naples that you can walk and get some sunlight, vitamin D. It's amazing, including myself, how depleted most of us are. In vitamin D, we live in Florida. Yeah. So make sure you get out and get some sun, and just 15 minutes without sunscreen, early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Another thing is your sleep patterns. You must have sleep. Sleep deprivation is a way of it's the worst for your body and your health. So, and I think we mostly understand that. So don't try to skip by on your sleep, because your body is rejuvenating. And create an atmosphere in your house. And this is another topic where you have a very dark room and you have a quiet atmosphere, you don't have the technology, and consider that you're doing it for longevity and health. Another thing, I really regret that that when I was growing up, Sundays, do you remember this, everybody? Stores weren't even open, okay? It was a Sabbath rest. Even if you weren't a practicing Christian, it was a day of rest. And you did things with your family, and you didn't run around, and it was so nice. It was so nice. Now we are going 24/7, and Sunday is like another day. Very deleterious to our health. But you are responsible to find a point of rest during the day, as well as pick a day on the weekend. Try to do it. Don't work 7 days a week. This was my hardest. How many people find monitoring and I'll say even lassoing your mind is one of the hardest things. So I want you to keep in mind, this is another Dean Ornish, it's not the stressor in your life that makes you sick as much as your perception of the stressor. Okay? That's why people in terrible situations like the Holocaust, some survived and some didn't, because they had hope. Some of the people that survived had hope and perception of hope and the ability to get out of the situation. So this was a big theme at that conference I attended, that your perception of your situation. So it's very, it's important that you don't have to let every thought that runs through your mind, and the mind is like a computer, and it's from enculturation and past experiences, and you don't have to take every thought that runs through as truth. Because just think about it. You wake up in the morning and maybe you ate too much the night before and you feel terrible and maybe you feel in a bad mood. Then you suddenly realize it's agita or something. So you can see that you can't really count on the mind being the definitive truth. It might be telling you a perception or a lie. You have to look at what's running through your mind and monitor it. And that's why a lot of people are going to mindful thinking or meditation, or I center myself with devotions in the morning. And I'll actually, the main purpose is to correct my thinking. because you can really halt your progress as a sacred individual by negative thinking, and it could be a lie. So that's something I want you to really think about. And think about that thing with a perception. Purpose. Everyone has a purpose. Spend time finding what you've been uniquely created to do. This was hard for me too, and I'm just going to quickly tell you what I did. I was at that point a mother and a wife, but I've completely forgotten who I was besides that. And I think a lot of us do that. So I kept a journal. It took me 5 years to figure out who I was. And I was asking childhood friends, what was I like? Who was I? You know, I was trying to get back, you know, to what I liked, because my whole life had been centered around my family. And that's a good thing, but don't lose yourself, because you have, here's the thing, you have to know who you are so that you can give it to others, okay? Because you are in the mission field, and there's not another person like you. I can prove it. If you look at your face recognition phones now, go to Universal or some of these theme parks, and they identify people from all over the world by their fingerprint. So if you don't think you're unique, and that your purpose isn't different from your purpose is different from your purpose, and all you have to do is find out what it is. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be your name in lights. I'll just tell you what I found. I always loved music and art. I never finished my music degree, but yet I felt that I could uplift people through my voice, and I wanted to sing excellently. And I had sung before all through the years, but now I want to sing excellently. So upon the 6th, 7th year, I got the courage to go back to school and finish the degree with kids, my kids' age, and I did it. And now I have a job as a soloist section leader, and I'm working with people that are like 25, but I'm past that now. I did it, and it has given me a purpose. Art also, and I'm not going to go into my purposes, but purpose also can be being authentic. I remember to say to myself, real fun Francie, because I always had a sense of humor, and I was always a little edgy or eccentric, and I remind myself to be exactly myself. If you're living a phony life, do you know that when I looked at people with cancer types, and a lot of people were going through therapy for their ability to actually increase their susceptibility to sickness through their personality type, one of the things were people who were living a lie, that weren't being themselves authentically. Think of that. Being yourself will help you be well, and then you can also express that beautiful person to other people. So you have your homework, and as I said, a journal, and remember, it took me about 5 years, and I'm still honing it, to live authentically and serve others. You were given a gift of this beautiful person that you are, unique gifts, and now you're going to give it away. Can't do that if you're lacking self-confidence or you feel you're a nothing, right? And that wreaks havoc on your health. God did create you with a purpose. The next thing we talk about a lot, so we won't spend a lot of time. Build quality relationships. And maybe you weren't given these relationships with family, or some people don't have any family. So it's up to you, and there's an expression, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, all right? You're going to have to go out just like I did, and I'm not a big social butterfly, but I force myself to go out and meet like-minded people, and I also took a look at family members. Now, important family members, again, it was perception. if you have somebody that's hard to deal with, maybe we need to change up our way we look at the person or deal with a person, not just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Do you understand? You might have an honorary spouse or a kid that's driving you crazy. Okay, so I'm just being real. I actually had that. I had to readjust my perception. My baby is giving me a high sign. Okay, this is your card. You can go over it and check yourself out, because this truly is about you, the sacredness of you. It's time to claim your health and well-being. And I'll be more than happy after I'm going to let everybody eat. I'll be walking around, we can talk more. Recipes are one element, and as I said, learning to cook would be probably a good thing for 2018. Maybe you could do it with a spouse or a friend and share your recipes. I remember how a friend, Sue Rigger, was so proud of herself. She was on Facebook, oh, look what I made, look what I made. But, and just, so anyway, I'll talk to you. My diet is predominantly vegan. So, and I'll share any questions you have. All right, I'm gonna